All right, it looks like we got the recording started up. Well, first things first, thank you to those who've joined us. Really appreciate everyone joining us kind of here in the middle of the day. And what we wanted to do really quick before we kick off is give a quick intro to the company, who we are, and then we will dive into really the presentation. So my name is Khaled. I work here at KINETIQ, and our biggest focus is all around getting more value in the manufacturing, CPG, distribution space for folks using Microsoft Fabric and Dynamics. And what we're going to talk to you a little bit about today is how you can build forecasting applications within Microsoft Fabric. I'm going to show you a newly launched to GA product today, where you can learn a little bit about how you can build native EPM solutions directly in your data platform. So I want to hand over to Alp just for a very quick intro, and then we'll start talking about all of this for everybody.
Absolutely. Thank you, Khaled. Appreciate it. And hi, everybody. Very nice to see you all here. My name is Alp. I'm the Managing Director for Architecture and Platforms here at KINETIQ. As Khaled mentioned, we're going to be giving you an exciting demo today, talking about integrated planning within Fabric Planning, and showing some use cases as to what planning can look like for supply chain, FP&A, as well as other use cases on there. So very excited to kick off with you guys here.
Phenomenal. We also have with us Supriya, who is a principal product manager at Microsoft and one of the brains behind the operation. Supriya, if you just wanted to say hi.
Of course. Hey, thanks, Khaled. Hi, everyone. I'm Supriya Kashyap. I'm a product manager in Fabric Planning, and I'm very happy to be here. I support all our customers on everything related to planning within Microsoft Fabric IQ. Thank you.
Very excited to have you with us, Supriya. And I believe later today on this presentation, we'll be treated with Asif as well, who will showcase a good deal of how this product adds to the generally the Microsoft ecosystem, and especially to Fabric.
Yeah, Asif is currently traveling. He had a customer engagement that he needs to attend to. So in case he doesn't join, I'll be here.
Got you. You'll be the spokesperson in chief. Awesome. Well, let's get started then. So what today's topic is all about is the ability to do your planning and forecasting where your data lives. And we're going to be talking about integrated planning within Microsoft Fabric. So we put this together because the EPM ecosystem, the EPM environment is changing, and Fabric Planning is making a huge dent in that ecosystem. So just to kind of introduce the team and understand how we're all coming together. Number one, of course, my name is Khaled. We're focused on EPM solutions here at KINETIQ, and we build and we work with Microsoft Fabric to build FP&A, S&OP, and generally supply chains and operations planning. With us, as we mentioned, we have Alp on the architecture and platform side, and Supriya, who just introduced herself. And it does look like we are lucky enough to have Asif with us as well. Hello, Asif. But you might be on mute.
Asif, you're on mute.
Hey, Asif Kazi, PM on the Microsoft Planning side.
Awesome. So we're very, very excited to have the Dream Team here together, and we want to show you guys with no further ado what we're talking about and why. And there will be a live demo here today as well, courtesy of Alp, who will be showcasing what this looks like. So as we mentioned, we work with organizations where ultimately the situation they deal with on a day-to-day basis is they have siloed data across a number of different sources, and then their planning is also siloed as well. So we see financial planning, demand planning, operations and production planning, all done, and inventory planning, all done in different places. And so it is very hard for folks to see a cohesive picture of their business. So we have worked with people across industries, including manufacturing, distribution, and CPG. And we are partnering with the Microsoft team here to show you a little bit about what that planning looks like directly in Microsoft Fabric. So the problem that we've seen and what a lot of people are dealing with is that traditionally, folks have had to choose between two uncomfortable choices. Number one is rather expensive third-party planning solutions, so EPM software that is a standalone solution for which you have to integrate data from other third-party solutions or manually upload it. Or the alternative is a lot of folks are using Excel spreadsheets, and we see this even at the highest levels of enterprise. Folks are doing their planning manually in those spreadsheets across the organization and then trying to stitch together a picture of their month, quarter, or year, which is getting harder and harder to do with just the amount of, number one, complexity, and number two, disruption that we see these days. People need to be more adaptable. And so what fabric planning does is sort of anchor itself to these two problem statements, as we'll see on the next slide. So what typically people end up doing is every planning cycle, this might be monthly, quarterly, or even annually, people have to extract data out of their data platform, out of their data sources, cleanse it, reconcile it. That data is now immediately disconnected from your live actuals the moment you export it. So the moment you export that data or the moment you pipe it into your third-party planning tool, you find yourself now working with stale information. So everyone from supply chain to operations, finance, and leadership are working on stale snapshots of the data, not that live picture. And so the platform that they invest in on the data side stops short of the decisions that matter most. When you're in your planning conversations, when you're forecasting for the future, you're not best equipped with the data you need. And so why have people struggled to fix this? Why is maybe Excel not filling that gap? Why are planning solutions and traditional ways of tackling this problem not getting the job done? Well, number one, it's not necessarily just the tool. It's about how and where planning happens, right? And that location of where that's going to be makes a huge difference. So having a better Excel model that isn't connected to live data still leaves you with the problem of needing to export information to extract it out of your source systems. And being able to, build sort of a lot of complexity on top of that also leaves you in a situation where you have a lot of templates, a lot of different tabs, and it's a lot of opportunities for numbers to not reconcile and for your models to break. So, enhancing the solutions that you already have with Excel-based planning for finance and operations and supply chain, as well as those third-party solutions, leaves you in a tough situation. It doesn't fix the gap that we're talking about. And so what the team here has done is they've built out integrated planning on Microsoft Fabric. And so there isn't a boundary anymore between where your data lives and where you actually do your planning. And that goes back to what we were saying is it's not just about the tools, but it's about how and where the planning is actually happening. So when you can do your planning directly within Microsoft Fabric, you're not extracting and exporting data out of a source, you're planning within the source because it is in one platform together. And so your forecasting and scenario analysis is running on the same data that is powering your analytics and reporting. Your actuals data are living side by side with your forecast, and you can see in real time how your business is performing versus what you had forecasted, and you can make decisions and adjustments in real time as well. So now you have one platform, one place for you to do everything for data, analytics, of course, your AI capabilities, and your planning, and they all create a virtuous cycle together. So because you have all of that live data, all of that built into your semantic model, you now see real-time updates flowing directly into your plans. You no longer have to have someone whose job it is to be basically a human API, checking data at its source and verifying where we are versus our forecast. So what I want to do is not describe it any further. I actually want to pause the screen share from me for a moment here and hand over to Alp. And what Alp is going to do is walk you through, in particular, integrated planning so that you can see from end to end how different personas or different people within your organization can come together and where they can have a cohesive story where maybe finance, operations, and others are all looking at one picture of the business that is tied to your actual data platform, so you can really make adjustments in real time. Alp, I'm going on mute and it's over to you.
Thanks, Khaled. I appreciate it. And I just wanted to do a double check. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Awesome. So let's go ahead and let's get into it. And a couple of great points from Khaled from before, which is making this truly an integrated planning mechanism. Number one, just before we get into the use case right here, I just want to also mention that this data that you're seeing, this is connected to a semantic model built within Fabric. So this means that you went through all that hard work of cleaning up your facts, your dimensions. You now can leverage that for your planning process as well. So what we want to show you on the screen right here for this example is essentially what a integrated business planning cycle can look like for a supply chain manufacturing or consumer product goods company as they're going from their demand forecasting to production to eventually their financial planning. So we want to give you an example of what Fabric Planning can do, some of the features in here, and how users can utilize this for their planning process. So what you're seeing on my screen right here, guys, is an example of a sales and operations planning process on here. We have multiple users that can come in to interact with the solution itself. And we can see various different SKUs on the left-hand side, along with various different metrics, which we'll get into a second, that can be inputted by the user. Now, some of these metrics are coming from actuals data. So this is data that's being fed in from the existing model into Fabric Planning. And then other data points here are inputs that users can make. So typically what we're seeing on the demand planning side is this is where the sales and demand planning teams are going in and figuring out their assumptions for the year of how much they're going to sell and what that revenue is going to translate to. So on here, what we can see is that we actually have the capability to be able to write back directly within the solution. And I want to give you a quick example of how this can work right here. So number one, if you look right here on my screen, you can see there are various different yellow input boxes that I can make adjustments on. The beauty about Fabric Planning that we really love is that you can do either a top-down, meaning that you enter a number and change all the weights of the existing data points below it, or a bottoms-up change where I can actually edit an individual product and forecast what that demand is going to look like. So on here, for example, I can come in and start to forecast that I believe that 50,000 units are going to be sold within this particular week, since I'm forecasting at a week level. Now, what this is ultimately going to do is this is going to change my metrics below right here to showcase exactly what that change exactly does. And what you'll notice right here is that our ending balances are changing, our average demand is changing, and then various different metrics that we have below right here, which are indicating what our healthy inventory levels look like, are changing as well. Now, this is going to come into handy later when we eventually get into the production planning side, where based on the demand, do we have enough goods to actually produce this demand? And if not, well, where do we need to produce? So we're going to see an example of that in a second. Now on here, you'll notice that when I make that change, it changes the various different inputs below right here. These are actually measures that are built within Fabric Planning. So these are dynamic measures that based on the inputs you're changing, it's dynamically changing other outputs directly within the screen for you to see in real time. So this is where your users are going to come in and can essentially do demand planning off the board. Now, another thing that's great about this that I also want to highlight is commentary. Something that we typically see a lot of is users are looking for a way to explain these numbers changes. So I can see that there's a comment left right here by myself. I can also tag, for example, Khaled in here to interact with the solution. So this becomes an interactive conversation that can be done with different users. So as an example right here, I can actually tag Khaled, let's say, to be able to go and look into this number and leave a comment in place right here. So this is a great part about Fabric Planning is you're not only changing your assumptions for your forecast to understand what your demand is going to look like and compare it to actuals, but what you're also doing is you're also giving a mechanism for users to have interactive sessions, understand commentary, and so on and so forth. So you can see right here that on the right-hand side, there's a lot of different features already built into Fabric Planning, where you can actually come in and analyze all the various different comments, either looking at a particular cell, or of course, being able to look at all comments across the board within the solution itself. So what we love about this is that users are coming in, doing their demand plan, data is coming in, from various different source systems as a starting point, and that data can be copy, leveraged, and used as a starting point for the planning process itself. Now, another thing I also just want to highlight too, just on this one, as we're talking about demand and essentially how that's affecting production numbers and assumptions, is also audit trails. So on here, a great part about this is everything is tracked. So we know that from experience dealing with various clients and hearing some of the pain points, they're looking to see exactly what's going on, who's changing what. And one great thing about Fabric Planning built in is that you're going to have the capability to see audits of all the various different inputs that have been made by users, what sort of audit that is, and then of course, whether it's an allocation or a direct input that's being done, who the user was that did it, and then of course the actual date in which that happened on there. So what's great about this is you can actually see all of the various different audits, who did what changes were there, the old value to the new value, and who made it on what date. So this is all centralized within one location right here, but this is where it starts to get extremely interactive. So you're seeing one part of the integrated business planning process when it comes to both demand, production, and financial planning. So we went through our demand. We can see that we can see various different changes that are happening to our metrics as we're changing them. We can see our inventory levels are depleting as we plan demand, and we need to understand where exactly we need to produce. One pain point that we hear a lot about from various different clients is around being able to do a weeks of inventory analysis to understand exactly where there are certain issues in place, meaning where are levels of inventory understock or overstock, and where do we have normal levels. Well, what's a great thing about fabric planning is that you can actually put in various different heat map indicators. So to give you an example of what's happening here, every time I'm making a change on my demand, or my team is making a change, or the sales team and the demand team is making a change on demand, this is actually updating in real time right here. You can see it actually just updated before. So the idea behind this screen right here is users can use this as an indication point as to where they should go and figure out where they need to make adjustments to the plan. So in this case, the light red indicates areas where you are under stock in terms of inventory, and then green indicates normal inventory levels, and then of course the red indicates higher levels of inventory right here. So the idea behind this is that once you understand exactly where you need to make a change, you can go and make that change within the planning module itself. So for me right here, I can go ahead and start to adjust this value either by making a change to increase or decrease this number using the write back functionality built within Fabric Planning on here. Now, once this is done on here, we can move into other various different methods of the planning process. So in my case, that's going to be going into, for example, the product capacity, or understanding what our production capacity looks like. So now that we understand what all the inputs are, we can also start to analyze the data directly from Fabric Planning itself. So from here, I can see different production levels. I know where these SKUs are being produced, for example, in my demand planning process. I can know where we have healthy levels and unhealthy levels and where we need to plan to do production adjustments. So this really becomes a part of your process on here. Moving on, this is where we actually start to now build the revenue and the cost assumptions that will eventually feed the FP&A teams. So from here, we've done our demand, we've forecasted our units. Now it's time for us to be able to go ahead and make some price and cost adjustments based on taking real price data, real cost data coming from our systems, and then being able to make assumptions right here as to how that's going to translate for revenue. So if you imagine you're a company, you have various different products, you want to be able to do a price increase on those products. With Fabric Planning, what you're going to have the capability to do is directly influence those pricing assumptions, see the revenue impact, and then of course be able to copy those assumptions across the board and utilize various different functionality available within Fabric Planning to be able to do increases, decreases, or copies across the modules on here. So you can see immediately that revenue impact starts to come in here. Now, when we go into a revenue comparison, this is actually where we can start to compare our actuals as they come into the system to our forecast. So as we're making our forecast assumptions, as our actual revenue is coming in, we can compare that to our planned revenue to understand where exactly there are gaps, and then start to understand and make commentary around exactly why we have these gaps in these particular variances across our products across different months. So we're going from planning demand from a sales and demand planning team, going ahead and making assumptions of what exactly is going to be done throughout the year, to the right production that the operations and supply chain team needs to fulfill that demand, all the way to the revenue and the cost assumptions that will eventually feed the financial plan. Everything being done within one ecosystem, within one space on here. Now, the other thing also just to mention too is also other features of Fabric Planning that are going to be great for this process for what if scenarios, as well as planning various different products. So imagine now your team has the capability to come in here and also forecast new product SKUs that you may be planning for a new given year that don't exist within your system. You can simulate those and then start to simulate what potential cannibalization can look like, and other means in terms of what that exactly is going to look like for the particular company on here. So I have the ability to actually go ahead and enter a SKU. And within here, I can give that SKU a particular name based on what I know that SKU's name is going to be right here. And then start to assign that SKU to a product group to show the roll-up of what that revenue impact and that demand impact will be. Now, what we love about the power table right here is that you have the capability to also have approvals submitted for different SKUs that you want to plan against. So this is not necessarily a free-for-all where users can go ahead and input various different dimension values that you can plan against, but you can also put an approval mechanism behind this to ensure that this gets approved right here. As an example, you can see that on here we have an approval mechanism that's possible. that allows us to approve various different SKUs that we want to go ahead and utilize for this planning process on here. So these are all controls and approvals that can be done directly within Fabric Planning, a part of your process. Now, what happens on there is that becomes something that can be utilized for your planning process on here. So as I move throughout the planning process, as I approve those different SKUs, those can become available to my team through security, of course, to be able to showcase those from a planning perspective. So what I can come in here and do is I can actually filter to that particular product that has now been approved to start to plan against it. So now that becomes a SKU that we can actually work against within our model right here. So you can see I'm currently filtered on the Brazil dark coffee, but I can ultimately start to plan against other SKUs that are going to be available within this planning process on here. So if I scroll down, I'm going to have the capability to see various different SKUs that are available. So my one SKU that I'm looking at right here is Brazilian coffee. You can see that Brazil Dark V3 is now available because it's been approved on this. Now, last but not least is really what we're excited for is the agentic use case for this. All this data behind the scenes, thanks to Fabric Planning Info Bridge, allows you to save this data back to a SQL database, a Fabric SQL database, which then can be leveraged with your Fabric ecosystem, with your semantic models to be able to use agents against that data to allow your users to start to have conversations and ask questions. So on here, what we have the capability to do is actually use Info Bridge to be able to write this data back to a query. So when our planning submissions are done, we can actually start to deploy agents against this. So I can run a query or I can run a write back against this. So I can save this data back to our behind the scenes database and then start to leverage agents against this. So I want to give you an example of how agents can be used here against this planning data for users to start to have conversations. So if we come in here, we can actually go to the Copilot section right here where you can actually build out Fabric agents against your various different Fabric planning data. So on here, we actually create a sales and operations planning data agent, which allows us to be able to have conversations against those various different planning inputs that were made by users. And I want to give you an example of how this can be done. We have this agent right here. We have within Copilot, leveraging the data agent against Copilot right here to be able to ask questions. And one thing that I can do here is I can ask the agent, hey, can you produce a table of all weeks and SKUs where we have negative inventory balances? And what the agent can do is actually leverage that internal data, a part of the organization, to generate that particular query so that we can see exactly what's going on there and then produce examples for us. So we have a couple different examples right here where you can see what that data set produces at the top right here. But the idea is that you have the capability to be able to showcase various different inputs for a user to be able to see exactly what's going on within the data. So not only are you going to have users planning, but you're also going to have end users potentially interested in this data to understand the insights of what's going on. So this can help to inform planning decisions as to where exactly production forecasts need to be adjusted to ensure you don't have any negative inventory balances and you can fulfill that demand down the line. So you can see that I just had a table produced here. We can export this. We can also ask additional questions and additional prompts for the agent on here. So I know it's a lot of information just taking you from an end to end of how you can leverage Fabric Planning for the integrated business planning cycle. Kyle, I want to just tag you in for a second, just if there's any comments you want to also make on this one, just for the team, just to understand.
100%. What I'd love to do actually, Alp, is a little bit of storytelling with you. If we can go back to that S&OP, that first plan there, I want to walk folks through both on the FP&A side, but supply chain operations planning. I want to walk you through a story of folks we've seen who are dealing with these challenges and what they look like before Fabric Planning. So on Alp's screen right now, where he is showing the S&OP planning, that's sales and operations planning, we've worked with clients in the past where maybe the sales or the field team is, having conversations with their biggest customers, and they're trying to understand whether or not the company can actually fulfill a large customer order that's coming in. And what that historically looked like was they would take note of the client's request or the customer's request. They may then have to go call up someone in the warehousing or inventory sort of side of things. They will have to cook up a query. Then they go and find out whether or not they have the inventory on hand, if they can rush order it, all those sorts of things. So if I'm on the sales side of things and I'm trying to have a conversation with a customer who wants to put in an order, I face a big challenge because I have two problems. I either might not be able to commit confidently to fulfilling the order, therefore losing revenue. Or I overcommit and then I have to have a very uncomfortable conversation with my customers down the road because it turns out I didn't have the inventory needed to serve them. Now, what you can see on Alp's screen here is if I'm on the sales side, in just minutes, because we are leveraging the semantic model, because we are leveraging live data that has our inventory information, I can punch in a what if scenario of the number of units I might want to sell for a given SKU to a customer. And I can go and see if we're going to end up understocked, if we're going to run out of inventory. And so in real time, I can respond to customer demand and I can understand if we're able to fill that order and we can, start to strengthen our position with those customers. So we have seen this impact clients' top line revenue because they can actually commit to orders that they otherwise would not have had the information to do so confidently, and basically help people make decisions faster because they no longer have to chase that information around. They can be more adaptable. And especially today, this applies also on the supply chain side. Everyone is dealing with supply chain disruptions. And the same sort of thing can feed into finance. So just right here, we can see where there's going to be stock out situations, the sales team and the production and operations folks can start talking to each other. Taking it one step further, I can then take a look as someone on the manufacturing side or someone on the supply chain management side, and I can understand where we have a problem and where I need to focus. So these sorts of heat maps, this gives me in real time an understanding of, based on what conversations the sales teams are having, where we need to focus our production and how we need to shift our ordering and purchase orders of supplies, etc. And we start to close the gap. We start to close the loop between different teams. And this is what we mean by that integrated planning. I also have the option right here, exactly as Alp is showing, to make modifications to generally our master production schedule. This can feed back into your ERP, for example. But I can make decisions on what do we need to produce to meet customer demand, what our lead times are going to be, and what it's going to take to basically fulfill our commitments to our customers. What is different about this is that we're also enabling the finance team to come in, and they can go, as they're having conversations with suppliers and customers, we can go and understand, well, what happens if our costs increase due to tariffs or due to needing to get a new supplier? What happens if we were to change our pricing to reflect the change in our cost structure, etc.? And in real time, we can see a connected picture between what the sales and operations folks are forecasting for revenue and production. The folks in finance can know immediately what the impact will be to the P&L. And of course, we can build out things so that they can see what the impact will be to cash flow, to working capital, and to everything else that matters to the finance team. Now, the last sort of story to tell here is
Khaled, just one thing to mention here, as I'm showing the team this one. One thing that you're actually noticing is that you can create different scenarios. We have two right here, the base and the optimistic, as Khaled was comparing. You can actually run a compare scenario analysis to compare, let's say, the optimistic and the base scenarios, to run those actual simulations and see where the gaps are and plug in and see where the differentiators are. So these are all happening within the platform itself where you can run those and then, of course, commit those changes back to your original scenario that you're planning against. So I didn't mean to cut you off on there. Please keep going. Just want to highlight that really quick for the team on this one.
No, I love it. The speed of scenario analysis here with governance and frameworks in place allows people to move quickly while still protecting their data and leveraging all the hard work they already put to build out their semantic models. So finance, operations, HR, and sales can all be working from the same source of truth, and they can also quickly make decisions together without operating in silos from one another. A decision in one department, it is very clear what the impact will be to another department and vice versa, so that we can move together as an organization quickly without kind of chasing our own data. Now, we've also seen, up until now, what used to be the situation was for senior executives or stakeholders who wanted to get insights out of this data, every time we had to do some analysis or they had a question, we'd have to go and build basically a BI report or analytics. But today, with what Alp was showing you with Copilot here and with our ability to actually query that semantic model, what's exciting is that an executive can go and ask, which customers are going to be impacted most by a stock out, or which SKUs, as Alp's question right there, which SKUs are going to have a negative inventory balance. And we can start to really get to the root cause of financial and operational issues we have. The same will apply to FP&A. Which of our departments overspent versus budget? Which line items are we spending more or trending higher than we thought we would be, so that they can go and figure out how to put controls in place on their spend. And so from finance to operations, HR, and sales, we have one tool that's just leveraging your data platform within Fabric and helping to short circuit that pain point we were talking about at the beginning, where each one of these would normally have been a data pull that has to be done manually. And it's a lot of human coordination, and it's a very big coordination tax that's being eliminated here. So Alp, anything else you wanted to demo live, or?
No, I think we're good on here.
Awesome. So I'll go back to.
I just want to take a quick moment, right? Again, Alp, stellar demo, taking this end to end, right? Truly shows a couple of things, right? So obviously how comprehensive the tool is and the capabilities that it provides, right? And not just that, right? The true meaning of obviously Fabric is it's an integrated ecosystem and a single pane of glass. So you've literally taken the output that planning has provided and then been able to showcase that in data agents, and the same thing can be done in other tools and other capabilities, which means that, hey, whatever you've generated, you want to run Spark jobs on it, you can do it. You want to showcase it in a Power BI report, you can do it, right? And that's the beauty
Correct.
of building something over the Fabric ecosystem.
Correct.
I love that.
That's a great point, Asif.
I think on the, actually just in a second on the next slide, I'd love to talk about also how we can start talking about the agentic use cases based on this, and what the roadmap looks like with Fabric, so that not only can we plan for the future, but do something about it. And I think that's what's really exciting for folks, is have your data in one place with your planning, like you said, single pane of glass, and then take that and extend it to, all right, now let's actually execute on it. Let's make decisions, and let's let our platform, leverage it. Awesome. Very, very exciting. So I'll take back the screen really quick, Alp. And I just want to do a very, very quick recap, actually, before turning over to Supriya and Asif again. And just recapping what we saw there and why it is a huge difference from the way things have been done historically, but it's only an incremental step for users. Number one, you're planning directly on your data platform, not separately from it, either in Excel or a third-party tool. Number two, you can do, as you saw with Alp right there, in minutes or seconds, you can start to model out different scenarios and compare them side by side with one another. And as we mentioned, in a time where the ability to make smart decisions fast is more important than ever, having that data and that capability at your fingertips makes a huge difference, and it does return ROI. Of course, native to Fabric, you get all of the benefits of having governance, version control, audit logging, and security in place, rather than having to chase different files in SharePoint or sort of version control of Excel reports. Now, what that means is you no longer need to export data, share files, manage file versions, and you get insight basically in real time. So what I'd love to do now is turn over to Supriya and Asif, and there are two things we'd love to hear your thoughts on. Number one is a little bit about early success stories with the product, how people are getting faster time to value out of the platform. And secondly, with GA rollout just happening, could you give a little sneak peek of things that are on the roadmap, things that people can expect, and where they can get excited about the product?
Sounds good. Yeah. So thank you. I'll actually start with the second thing first. So I'll give a quick idea about sneak peek into the roadmap. What are the things we should expect now that the product is already GA? And then I will turn it over to Asif to share some success stories. Folks, as you know, we went GA worldwide with the product on 28th of July. So it's been more than 1 week, 10 days since we are globally available in most regions across the world. With that, what are the changes that we have enabled with GA, right? So the first is very important, which is like billing, right? So far the product was in public preview and it was free of cost. It didn't charge, we didn't charge customers any fabric capacity consumption, etc. When they tried the product in their environment. Now, we have turned on the billing, so customers would see real usage and real fabric capacity consumption in their tenant. They can track the metrics through the capacity metrics app, so on and so forth. So that's really one change that we are enabling. But from a product feature perspective, now that we have made the product like reliable, stable, we are planning about the agentic roadmap for the product. And while I can't disclose all of the details here, but think about some agentic capabilities like integration with co-pilots, so that users can ask their question in natural languages and get answers. We know agents are all the rage, so how do we ensure like agent-driven planning end to end, right? You just describe the scenario and an agent does the forecasting for you and gives you back the results. So those are some very high-level idea of what kind of agentic integration we will evolve. As you know, Microsoft has recently launched like ontology. So how are we making our product integrated with ontology is also like one of the top level action items that we should be hearing more about. But that's just a quick sneak peek into the agentic roadmap. What else? At the same time, like as Asif will talk next, you will see that a lot of our customers have started using fabric planning in production, but also fabric planning is a fairly mature product, right? It has been in the market. Like we did this integration with our partner Lumel, and the product is battle tested, but we are getting more feedback from customers on like what kind of skills, etc. we enable. So we are taking all of that feedback and we are making the product more AI ready, so to say. I'll take a pause and I'll see if Asif has anything to add.
No, that's a good area of coverage, right? Again, we have our ears on the ground and again, working closely with customers as the adoption takes off. And obviously, we're working on prioritizing the right things. Again, what Supriya spoke about, those are on the cards. Again, we're looking forward to getting them implemented and incorporated as we move along. And that's essentially the path as we move towards FabCon, right? That's literally where we are. Cool.
Very,
I-
go ahead.
I know you had an ask to talk about specific adoption, etc. Right? Again, as Microsoft, though I can't take any names at this point in time, I can assure you a couple of things. Right? You would be able to see those brand names and potential speakers, hopefully at the FOPCon timeframe. So would be excited to see again the attendees here. And would like for you guys to hear directly from those customers who are using Fabric Plan in production and adopting it. And again, the beauty of Plan, again, as Alp, you and Khaled, you reiterated, right? There are various use cases, right? It could be this thing, S&OP, right? It could be financial, right? Headcount planning, everything across the sun, which means that it doesn't necessarily have to be one vertical or the other. You will see everything from customer support, headcount planning, right? To financial services, to pharma, to other domains, right? And the greatest thing about this is we've seen this interest across the board, across various types of customers, both big and small. You'd be surprised that how many Fortune 50 or Fortune 500 companies are still doing enterprise planning in Excel sheets. And this is a welcome addition wherein, hey, you have full auditability, full audit trail, traceability, as well as collaboration available, which is not necessarily easy to do with Excel and without governance, importantly, right? And that's essentially what Fabric provides, right? The ease of use to use it over a semantic model, and importantly, providing you the governance, security, and the reliability that Microsoft provides, right? So excited about bringing those capabilities to market and excited on where the product is heading with customer feedback.
And Asif, just one question on that one. Is that going to be for FabCon Europe or FabCon US or both?
Where which part?
Some of the speakers coming out on the planning highlights you're just mentioning on there.
Yeah, we're working on penciling this in. You'd see some in FabCon Europe and even more in FabCon Atlanta. So looking forward to having everybody there.
Fantastic.
Really, really exciting. Actually, Asif and Supriya, among the things you were talking about, the two that really stuck out to me that I'd love maybe Asif or Supriya to add a little more flavor on is just how much this lowers the barrier to entry for folks to get value out of, number one, EPM on the commercial side of things, just the way licensing and you mentioned billing is going to be starting soon or is now starting, Supriya. Yeah. And then separately getting AI use cases. I know those are on the roadmap from an EPM solution. Just how much that lowers the barrier to entry to others who are now starting to look at modernizing their planning and forecasting infrastructure.
Right. I can take that up, and Asa, feel free to add if I miss anything. So in terms of lowering the barrier, let me start talking about like how it lowers the barrier from a billing perspective, first of all, right? So as you know, people present here might be aware, deeply aware about the EPM solutions in the market, right? So the way that all of our existing EPM providers have priced their solutions. So Asif talked about like, you know, we hearing from enterprises, even Fortune 500 enterprises doing their planning in Excel sheet right now. So that's one way of planning, doing it ad hoc, doing it in, you know, manually using Excel, etc. But of course, like, you know, you lack certain features like auditability, governance, and whatnot. The second way that we are seeing customers or users doing their planning is with the tools that are already existing in the market. And the way that is priced is on a license based, right? So you buy licenses for all of the stakeholders, users who want to do the planning. Now, what we noticed is enterprise planning is not a year-wide activity. Like rarely does an FP&A analyst sits and does planning for 12 months out of fiscal year, right? So we have generally seen that it's a cyclical pattern, right? You do the planning at the beginning of the fiscal year, you tweak it as you get more inputs around your usage planning data, etc. throughout the year, and then you compare your plan versus actuals or where you landed versus your forecast, right? So given that this is a cyclical activity, what are we doing to ensure that customers don't end up paying for licenses throughout the year, right? So we completely removed the licensing model, and in fact, like I would like to double click on this point that our pricing, the way we priced our solution, our EPM offering, Fabric Planning, is very disruptive. What that means is you have no dependence on any kind of subscription, any kind of licenses, etc. As long as you are on Fabric, which is Microsoft Data Platform, you can just go in your workspace and you can turn on planning, and it will use your existing Fabric capacity consumption. Any capacity that you don't consume towards planning can go to other Fabric workloads, right? And so it's a very easy plug and play kind of solution. So you don't pay anything upfront. Now, also that within Fabric capacity, different users use planning solution in different ways. Like some are editors of plan, right? Some are just viewer of plan. Like a CFO won't go and do planning by themselves, but an FP&A analyst can actually author and model plan. Right. So we identified 3 different kind of user persona, planner, stakeholder, and viewer with different, rights to edit the planning sheet, planning work with the planning item, and we charge them differently based on their access, etc. So all in all, what all of this does is, it significantly lowers the cost that you incur on planning versus any other EPM solution in the market. We don't want to quote like an official figure here, but you can expect up to an average of 40 to 50% saving versus any other solution that you are using is what our initial read has been. So that's lowering the barrier to entry in terms of cost. What was the second question, Khalid? I know it was related to the AI use cases, but actually, let me take a pause and see if Asif wants to add anything on the billing aspect.
No, I think you got it covered, right? And again, I'll just reiterate what Supriya said. Hey, again, our goal is as Microsoft to be disruptive in the pricing, right? And provide unique differentiated capabilities to our end customers at a fraction of the price, right? And again, that's the value that a lot of customers see in that ecosystem. And again, at the end of it, we're here to gain market share, right? With differentiated capabilities and a very unique product experience.
Yep, I think the big one on this is a lot of folks know that they need to have more adaptable planning. They need to be more resilient and able to just respond to changes in the market and their forecasting. I think it's something that people maybe have been scared away from because of the price tag of other solutions and the way it's sort of it's kind of all or nothing. But here you have a way to dip your toes in. And I think that same line of thinking applies to the AI capabilities and that's what the second question was for you, Supriya, where folks want to think about how AI can inform their forecasts for the future and how they can use AI to gain faster insights in their planning processes. But again, it seemed to a lot of folks or before this that might have been cost prohibitive and just complexity prohibitive. But as we're kind of seeing, I'd love for you to just kind of just talk about how that lowers the barrier to entry to getting ROI out of AI.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
before you go, Supriya, I just want to add something over here, right? And again, it's an important thing, and it's an important distinction, and Alp already demonstrated it, so it's important call out, right? So obviously, there are various ways you can get value out of the AI, right? Even out of the box today, where planning stands today, right? The fact that, hey, we're doing predictions, we're doing forecasting, etc. You have the ability to write out the plan and to write out the projections and incorporate it into your AI tool set and capabilities today, right? And that's essentially the capability of the platform that we provide today. We just demonstrated some of that through data agents, right? So those capabilities already exist today, and then essentially it's a spectrum of changes, and Supriya can talk about that. And again, a lot of it is future looking, right? Wherein, hey, we will add additional capabilities, right? Where some of it is going to simplify, hey, just engagement with essentially planning, and then as we go on adding additional capabilities based on customer feedback, right, which will allow more at the extreme end, will allow more agent to agent use cases, but at the same time somewhere in the middle you'll have capabilities wherein, hey, you can get help with analysis, right, projections and whatever else, right? So it's a wide spectrum of capabilities that can exist, and again, some of it will be made incrementally available as we evolve the product roadmap, right? Supriya?
Very exciting. Oh,
Yeah,
Supriya,
no,
sorry.
Actually, Asif covered everything. I wanted to just like add one point is it's along the similar line that Asif touched upon. Like the agentic capabilities can span a wide range, right? What we are hearing from customers is like, how can I questions like verbatim questions like, can I just turn Copilot on and can Copilot do it for me? Sure. How do we enable that is a 6 to 9 months roadmap, or we will be informing our users through various public facing blogs, materials and whatnot, all the way to, can I do this agentically? I just want to sit back and relax and let two agents talk, and I will just input my query in natural language. So that's like a pretty advanced use cases, right? There could be like role-based agents in the market, like could be a financial planner, could be a sales and operations planner, and etc. and whatnot. So this is something that we'll keep doing incrementally, but that of course lowers the barriers to entry in terms of it enables a lot of folks who were primarily like passive consumer of plan to actively participate in planning as well.
Yes. Yeah, I love that where you're bringing in people who were once passive consumers to be actively involved. So I want to recap everything just from the demos that we saw there, and for the interest of time, open up for Q&A and just showing everyone what next steps will be. But number one, what you saw there was our ability using the tool to unify people from finance, supply chain, and operations. And as Supriya just said, you're looping in stakeholders who, to this point, may not have been actively involved in planning. or who may have kind of found out too late about changes that they wanted to be involved in. Whereas now it's sort of a real-time cross-functional exercise across the organization. This way you're surfacing where there's misalignment between teams while there's still time to act. And we have one single data model that is creating a relationship between all the different departments. So we're all planning against the same data in real time, not our own individual versions in finance, HR, sales, operations, all together. What we end up having is we have one place, one pane of glass, as Asif said, where, for example, a shift in demand flows through to finance and operations in real time. The operations folks can react in their way and avoid issues like a stock out, while finance can avoid issues like working capital problems. And we're all able to react in real time together. So that alignment stops having to be basically humans communicating with each other at all times and having to have a meeting or a call, whereas in real time we can actually partner and look over our shoulders at each other, or look over each other's work, and actually make sure that what Alp is planning for aligns with what I'm planning for, and the same for Supriya and Asif. What I wanted to do at the last slide here, our penultimate slide, was highlight how we're seeing success just generally in this space. And I would love to finally turn over to Asif and Supriya one last time on how you would love to, kind of encourage people to get started, where they can make their first baby steps towards getting value out of this. What we've always seen is, number one, starting with a narrow use case with data that you already have in Fabric. So that might be sales, it might be operations, it might be some finance or HR data. And from there, once you have built a workflow, once you've set up the governance in a way that actually is appropriate for your organization, and you have your general end-to-end workflow for it, you can start to expand it. And that's where you can start to bring in data as needed, finance, operations, HR, or whatever other use cases you need. And the beauty about having this baked into your data platform is it's not a separate exercise of data integration to planning. They kind of leverage each other in lockstep. So as my data maturity evolves and I'm able to bring in more domains of data, so can my planning in lockstep together. And then you can start to do things like integrating the planning cross-functionally between sales, finance, and the other functions. So it's really just starting narrow, adding incrementally in lockstep with your expanding footprint in Fabric, and from there integrating one by one all the functions so that we're all looking at the same picture. This way, just like we talked about lowering the barrier to entry, you make a path that's incremental. Each use case gently builds on top of another and seamlessly integrates with the investment you've already made in Fabric. For the for the architecture of this, what that means is you're leveraging the sort of standard things that you'll do in Microsoft Fabric. That's bringing in your data, cleansing it, and implementing medallion architecture. But now you get to build something on top of it. So each one of those incremental use cases that we mentioned, for example, bringing a new domain to add to sales, finance, operations, and so on, that just enriches the semantic model you already have, which just gives you more capabilities in Fabric Plan. So I want to pause there and turn over to Q&A as well as next steps. And maybe if you could kick us off with a quick question, Asif, on especially how you would advise folks to get started, and maybe how you've seen people get value out of this quickly, how they can dip their toes in the water.
Yeah, so again, nothing better than working with your own semantic model, right? And that would give you an appreciation of essentially what's there, what needs to be forecasted, right? And how to use it. So that is definitely the best way. Kick the tires, right? Pick a nice, simple horizontal slice and start off with it and go from there, right? But again, that's essentially getting some proof of value in the product capabilities, etc. Right? But again, I do want to appreciate that, hey, this is a domain-based expertise, right? And not all customers necessarily have either the expertise or the time to take this up on their own. And that's where essentially we rely heavily on the tip of the spear with partners such as your team in going and helping customers realize the value and help with the implementation, and importantly, accelerate time to market. And that's essentially what customers are looking for, right? So yes, you can absolutely kick the tires, get some initial proof of value, but nothing better if you are trying to accelerate your time to market and time to value, right? Engage the KINETIQ team, and they can definitely help you move things along. And because it's not just technology experts in terms of fabric end to end, but also domain expertise in FP&A, right? My
Awesome.
2 cents. Yeah.
Much
think-
appreciated. Oh yeah.
I think one thing just to add to Asif's comment around the semantic model layer right there, it's super more important that modeling is in place where you have your standard facts and dimensions to really be able to take advantage of the full breadth of what fabric planning can offer. So you kind of got a sneak peek of that from what Khaled was showing before with that architecture diagram. That's going to be available, of course, in slides for you guys to take a look at. But having a good model in place is going to allow you to augment your processes to include fabric planning, for example, to be able to plan against that data. And then, of course, start to take advantage of some of the agentic use cases and callouts when there's information that's not aligning to the plan. So I just want to mention that too, that's going to be super important too as a takeaway, guys, is good models are going to result in a great planning capabilities and the ability to really be able to integrate across teams to utilize this platform.
Love it. And I couldn't agree more. I think the biggest thing I want to leave everyone with who is in attendance right now is, number one, how the platform works and where you can go look for your first steps. And number two, when you are ready to take the leap and start exploring this, you know how to get in contact with Asif, Supriya, and our team. And the way we do it is we partner with folks to understand, number one, what is the first domain? Like we talked about starting narrow. Where's the first domain that your organization can get value out of the platform? And how can we set you up with the foundations and architecture to expand upon it so that you can, as Supriya said, start to bring in people and teams who used to be disconnected and start connecting them and integrating them across the platform. So our contact information is here and we're available. And to everyone, we'll also be sharing the contact information of the right Microsoft folks so that you have someone, a trusted advisor, to help you take your first steps. I think that's it from us. I just want to see if there are any questions or additional questions from anyone in the audience.
I don't see anything in the Q&A on our side.
All right. Well, in that case, I will end the recording. And I think we're good to go. Thank you so much, Supriya and Asif, for joining us.
Yeah,
and
special
thank you
shout
again
out to you both.
Appreciate you guys genuinely. And thank you to everyone who took the time to attend. It means a lot to us, and I hope it was valuable and useful to you. Thank you all.
Thank you, team.
Thank you for having us. Again, stellar demo, right? Showing the true capabilities. So thank you for doing that.